One of the ways that we will answer a lot of questions, including almost all of our inequalities in college algebra, is using what is called set notation. So, set notation is a way of shortcutting answers that involve less thans or greater thans. And the easiest way to explain set notation is to start with, we're going to start with this guy right here. If you should be able to graph x is greater than -6 and less than 4 on a number line at the same time. So what does that look like when we graph it on a number line? We have the number -6 here and we have the number +4 here. You always want to think number lines go small to big, left to right. Now, since 6 has a less than or equal to on it, we want to include 6 as one of our -6 as one of our answers. So we're going to put a dot above the 6, meaning use this as one of our answers. But this says we want x less than 4 but not equal to 4. So to symbolize that, we're going to use an open circle on the 4. Now, this x says we want to use all of the numbers in between there, and those are our answers. So -5, -4, -3, -2.1, -2.0004, those are all answers. So we're going to shade in between here to say those are all of the answers that we're looking for. Now, how do I turn this into what is called interval notation? What's the matchup here? So whenever we have a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to, on the number line we use a dot. And in our interval notation, that will translate to square brackets. We're going to use like parentheses. And so less than or equal to, greater than or equal to translate to a dot on a number line and a square bracket in our interval notation. If we have just a less than or a greater than, we use an open circle to graph it, and we will use parentheses to express that in our interval notation. The other thing that we always want to remember is you always want to go small to big, left to right. Just like we see it on the number line, you always want to go smallest to biggest, left to right. So what is the smallest number in our answer on this number line? Well, it's a -6. Then we're going to put a comma and we're going to tell it what's the biggest number in our answer. Well, the biggest number is a 4, and we'll write that. So smallest, comma, biggest answers. Then, because 4 is not included, we will use a parentheses. Because 6 is included, that -6 is included, we will use a square bracket. So this translates to this. It's just a faster way of writing things. We will use it all the way through pre-calculus and calculus. You're going to need to get very used to interval notation. Let's go up to the top now and let's graph x is less than 5. So if we look at our number line, the 5 is here. It's less than 5. So are we including the 5? No. And which way is less than? Which way should I shade here? We're going to shade this way, but when do we stop? Well, everything less than 5 is what we want. So we're actually going to shade all the way down forever and ever and ever and ever. So if we look at our shaded portion here, what is the smallest number that's shaded? If I go all the way to the left forever and ever and ever and ever, what is that number that we kind of put down there? What's that limit? That's a -infinity. That's our smallest number. Now, what's our biggest number going to be? Well, that biggest number that's shaded is 5. See how 5 has a circle? And this is a less than, not a less than or equal to. Remember, that means we're using a parentheses. Now, the tricky part is infinity. Can you ever reach infinity? Like, is it ever possible to equal infinity? It is not. So if you have a -infinity or a positive infinity, you will always use parentheses for those. So we'll put a parentheses here, and this tells us everything from -infinity up to 5, but not including 5 as part of our answers. Let's try this next one. X is greater than or equal to 5. So we're going to mark our 5. It's a greater than or equal to, so we need to use a closed dot because we want to include the 5 as one of our answers. Which way do we shade if we want greater than? Well, greater than is shading to the right all the way up. Now remember, we want to write smallest number, comma, biggest number that we have shaded as part of our answer. So the smallest number is 5 and the biggest number is infinity. This is a greater than or equal to, which means we got a dot, which means we use a bracket. And a lot of my students want to then put a bracket here. But remember that you can't ever get to infinity. You're never going to get there. You must always use a parentheses. Let's not get a problem wrong because we've got our parentheses incorrect. And notice 5 is smaller than infinity, -6 is smaller than 4, negative infinity is smaller than 5. We always go smallest number, comma, biggest number. That's how we write these things. Now, occasionally when we do some problems, you're going to have something weird come up, and that is something that looks like this, where we have 6 is less than x is less than 4, right? So if we think about it, what they're saying here is that we've got a 6 down here and a 4 up here, and that we want to put a dot here and we want to put a circle here and we want to shade. And then I get a lot of students who say, well, 6 comma 4 is the answer. But can you see what's wrong with this? What is wrong with this? It's that 6 is not smaller than 4. This is just completely wrong on the number line. And if we read it, what we're saying here is that 6 is smaller than x, which is smaller than 4. So we're saying 6 is smaller than 4. Does that even make sense? It doesn't. So actually, this one is a does not exist. DNE stands for does not exist. And you're just going to type DNE into My Open Math or click that button because this answer does not exist.